Hello, everyone. Once again, I am JJ Dixon with the Jacksonville Brotherhood of Police Officers, and we are here today to have another round of conversations with one of our retired officers from the Sheriff's Office here in Jacksonville, Florida, about his experiences while he was with the Sheriff's Office. So please help me welcome retired officer, pilot, Barry Brown. So good to have you here today.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, I want to say I really appreciate it because I understand that you drove in from out of town to give us this opportunity.
Yes.
So I really thank you for doing that. You didn't have to. So that being said, I know that I just kind of let the cat out the bag. You were a pilot for the Sheriff's Office for a few years. So I want to give you a few minutes just to kind of tell everyone who retired officer Barry Brown is.
Well, thank you. I'm a native of Jacksonville. I joined the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office in 1976 as a correctional officer after I was discharged honorably from the military. I worked at the jail as a correctional officer for about a year, and I came on the street in 1977. I spent about 5 years in patrol, and then I transferred to the narcotics division. I worked undercover for about 5 years. During my time in the narcotics division, I was also had the opportunity to join the Jacksonville SWAT team. I was on the SWAT team for about 8 years. Worked what was then called the SAS Division, Strategic Investigations Division, while also on the SWAT team. And then in 1988, I transferred to the Police Aviation Unit.
Interesting. I did not know a lot of those things. So narcotics, SWAT, sounds like you must have been in pretty good shape.
Back then I was.
Yeah, I didn't know those things. And you weren't just there for a few months. You were in those positions for a number of years.
Yes.
And that says a lot. So I'm thinking about narcotics and SWAT, and then I'm thinking aviation, like how does that happen? So I guess my first question for you is, when you became a police officer, did you know at that time that you wanted to be a pilot?
Not at that time. Ever since I was about 8 years old, I wanted to be a police officer. And throughout my military career, I never thought about being a pilot. My last 6 months, I was OJT as an MP in the Army. And my thing was just, getting out, working the street, being able to help not only people, but our people. Because, back then there was a lot of injustices done to the Black community. So that was my lifelong dream of being a police officer. My interest in aviation came a little bit later. It was one of those things when I was a kid. It's like I would look up and see planes. Like, I might like to do that one day, but I never put much thought into it because my main focus was law enforcement.
Well, let me ask you this: coming up in the 70s, probably 60s, 70s, and 80s, I can relate a little bit to the back end of that. Did you think it was even possible for you to ever be a pilot?
I came up in the era where there were still two separate water fountains. I remember those, one said white only. And even in the military in the early 70s, I remember driving back from Jacksonville to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And I pulled in to this gas station to get some gas. And there was a sign, white only. And that was just in the I went in the Army in 73. So at the time, I was, for lack of a better word, a pipe dream. It was like one day I'd like to do that, but I really didn't give much thought at that point in time.
So was there something that happened when you were at the Sheriff's Office that might have given you hope that maybe that one day you could be a pilot for the Sheriff's Office? Yes.
When the Sheriff's Office finally accepted the first Black pilot, and that was Nathaniel McLean. I didn't know him very well. And of course, I'm sure he'll tell you his stories, but it took him several years to get into the aviation unit. And I'm sure he would mention this to you as well, but he was told when he first applied, quite frankly, that we're not accepting any blacks into the aviation unit at this time. So once he was there, and that gave me hope. And there was also another officer, Elliot Van Dyke. He had gone to, he had taken private lessons and got his private pilot's license.
Wow.
And not throwing any shade on Elliot, but when he got his private pilot's license, I said, if he could do it.
I know I can do it, right?
I know I could.
I've said that
he
before.
was a good pilot.
Right, but I didn't do it. But anyway, go ahead.
And so I was in SIS at the time, if I'm not mistaken, and there was an opening in the aviation unit. And I applied and didn't make it the first time. And
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
You said there was an opening in the aviation. Did you have to have any kind of experience to get to apply for that position?
At the time, they wanted you to have at least a private pilot's license, which I'd earned by that time.
Oh, okay.
So I took flying lessons on my own and paid for it.
Wow.
It took me about a year, working off duty and overtime.
Yeah.
But after about a year, I finally got my private pilot's license.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I mean, I don't know because I've never studied to be a pilot, but doesn't it generally take longer than that?
No, actually, it depends on the time that you have to dedicate to it and the money. At the time, you had to have at least, according to the FAA, 40 hours of flight time. Very few people do it in 40 hours. It usually takes maybe 50 hours. And of course, working at that time in narcotics, I had to do it on my days off or whenever I had enough money saved up to do it. So unlike if I had gone into a flight school and, was able to fly several days a week, then I probably could have gotten it done in 2 or 3 months.
Oh, okay.
But paying out of pocket, it took a little while.
Yeah, I'm sure. And then trying to do your studies around work and everything else that you had going on. So you applied and you were not accepted.
The first time, correct.
Was that discouraging for you, or?
It was. And once I was finally accepted into the aviation unit, I heard through the grapevine that we're not going to have 2 black pilots at one time in the aviation unit. So, which meant that since I was on the list to go, they were saying that McLean had to leave.
Come on.
And like I said, I didn't know him very well. I've only seen him a few times, and this was when we were in those 7-Eleven. I have seen him a couple of times, or a couple of times when we were there, but didn't know him at all. But I sent word back to him and said, look, this is what I was told. And if that's the case, then I'm going to remove my name from the list because I don't think it was fair for me to take your spot, when you've been out there.
Right.
So he sent word back to me saying, if you can get out of here, come, because I'm not going anywhere.
There you go.
And so shortly thereafter, I was transferred to the aviation unit, and of course, he stayed there. We became very good friends, being the only 2 blacks, at the time. And when I left the aviation unit to take a job with an airline, he was the chief pilot, and I was the assistant chief pilot.
Wow. I do remember those days. That must have been very, very rewarding for you.
It was. And, being the only 2 blacks out there, like I said, we became very close. He became a flight instructor before I became a flight instructor. And he would give me flight instructions. Excuse me. But he was a very hard teacher. I mean, and to the point, it's like, man, why are you so hard on me? I mean, I thought we were buddies, I was feeling some kind of way.
Right.
And so, one day, because we would always go to lunch, and he would always buy my lunch and everything. And I used to tease him, say, why are you buying my lunch all the time? You just fattening me up for the kill, And so one time I asked him, I said, man, I mean, we're the only two blacks here, and he's kind of hard on me as an instructor, you know. So he told me, said, look, B, whether these white boys get it or not, that's up to them. But you're going to get it.
You're going to make sure that you got it.
And ever since then, it's like, you know, wow. So he was hard on me for a reason. And now I appreciate it because of his training and wisdom, that allowed me to get the job with the airline. And, you know, advance my flying career. So.
And I think, to me, listening to what you're saying, I think it's believable that you had to be better. You had to be better than everybody else, because if you weren't, there was always that chance that they may have to cut somebody or get rid of somebody, and that would be a good reason for them to send you back where you came from, because you weren't as good as the others that were out there. So
exactly, I mean, we were scrutinized, and even then, you know, we had to fly with pilots that didn't want to fly with us. You know? And the aviation unit was divided into two sections. You had a helicopter section and a fixed wing section. And it got to McLean and I advanced to the point to where we were the only two pilots that was qualified to fly every aircraft in the unit. You had some guys that only flew helicopters, some guys only flew airplanes. But not only did we fly everything in the unit, we both became, like I said, he was a flight instructor, and then I became a flight instructor, both in fixed wing and helicopters. So we flew everything.
what was the motivation for you all to go to the extreme? I'm saying to the extreme. I know it doesn't seem that way to you, but to go to the extreme, not only could you fly this, you could fly this and that. Not only could you fly this and that, you could train other people how to do this and that and that. What was the motivation?
Well, I can't speak for him, but for me, it was being able to have pride in myself. You know, being able to do something that a lot of people don't do. I mean, even now, this is 2024, there's still, well, black pilots, or pilots of color, make up about 1% of the aviation community.
Is that on a national level?
A national level.
Wow.
So they're still, as opposed to white pilots, there's still not a lot of black pilots out there. So for me, it was a sense of pride and accomplishment, you know. And for him, I think he would say, when he first got into the unit, being the first black pilot, those pilots that did not want to necessarily fly with him, he was in a position now to instruct them and to give them additional ratings and additional training. Did
you notice at some point that attitudes begin to change, maybe?
At some point, yes. You know, as more pilots came to the unit, attitudes changed, and the ones that didn't, they left.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you move into a neighborhood and people start moving out. Certain people start moving out. So.
Yeah.
But the aviation unit was a very, for lack of a better word, it was a club, so to speak. You know.
Yeah, we all knew that.
Yeah. So you know, not a lot of people were allowed to come in. And then after I got there, they kind of reduced the requirements. Well, you don't have to have a pilot's license, but if you've taken the written test, the private pilot test, then that shows us that you have a willingness to get into the aviation unit. Because a lot of pilots, well, I've always wanted to fly, you know, and I can understand their reasoning. It's like, well, what have you done towards that?
Right.
You know, if you say you always wanted to fly, well, have you gone out and taken the test? Have you taken flying lessons?
Yeah.
So they kind of, you know, relaxed those requirements, and we did a few more black pilots in the later years to come into the aviation unit.
Now, we always wanted to know this answer to this question. What were y'all doing out there? Because we never see the pilot. You never see the pilots at the sheriff's office. If you see them, they come strutting through with their pilot stuff on every now and again, and they're out just as fast as they came in. So what do the pilots do out there when they're not handling calls?
Well, they were flying patrol. We would fly 2-hour shifts.
Okay.
We'd go for 2 hours, then we'd fly, and then the next crew, if we had the manpower available, would go up for 2 hours, and they would fly. And then I forgot the years, but there was a time when we had to kind of cut back on patrol. So we would land on top of the PMB. And kind of hang out in the comm center until there was a call. They would run up to the roof and crank up and go and take off. Or we would, just stay on the ground at the hangar. And then the guys that through the fixed lane, which was mainly McLean and myself, we'd fly almost every day, different cities, sometimes different states. We'd fly to Texas, extraditing prisoners back to Jacksonville, up to DC, New York, and he and I did that exclusively for several years.
Wow, I forgot about that part of it. So I know that you all would receive calls for service if someone, for example, was chasing, somebody or whatever might have happened. You all would handle those calls. So I want to ask you, and maybe I should have given you a little head start on this, but I'll give you a minute to think. If there's one that was kind of interesting or funny, or one that you still think about today that kind of reminds you of how things were back then.
Well, I have a funny story. It wasn't when I was in the aviation unit. It was when I was in narcotics. We had a case where this guy was coming in to buy a large amount of drugs. I think it was cocaine, if I'm not mistaken. And we didn't have a drug dog at the time. We had a dog, but we didn't have a drug dog, trained drug dog. So there was an undercover officer involved, and we wanted to do everything we could to keep the undercover officer's identity, from being blown. So we told the bad guy, or the undercover guy, told the bad guy, well, look, I don't want you to know where my stash house is. So I'm going to take your car to my warehouse. I'm going to leave you with my car. I'm going to load up the drugs, and I'll bring it back to you. Okay. So the bad guy says, okay. So he took the bad guy's car. We loaded up some drugs in the trunk, put a cutoff device on the car because we wasn't going to allow this guy to get, away with drugs. And while we had the car at the warehouse, notice we didn't have a trained drug dog. So we had to come up with a plan. How are we going to, stop this car, and kind of make it believable. So one of the agents, he had some barbecue, and while we had possession of the car, he kind of put barbecue on the tag of the bad guy's car. So the undercover guy took the car back to the bad guy, and he paid him the money, and they exchanged cars. And we were following him. I think it was US 1. He was headed back to Georgia, and we made the decision to take the guy down. Well, they hit the switch. The car died because we had the cutoff device in the car. The guy pulled over, and unbeknownst to him, he didn't know what was wrong. He just thought maybe something was wrong with the car. But we didn't want him to pop the hood and investigate because he would see the cutoff device. So lo and behold, wouldn't you know it, a patrol car just happened
to be coming by
with the dog. And so he got out and asked, it was like a Signal 96, So he asked the guy, he says, hey, you have any problems? Of course, the guy says, well, I don't know, my car just stopped. He says, well, I can call you a wrecker if you'd like, But in the meanwhile, I got this dog that I'm training. Do you mind if he kind of walk around, your car? And of course, the guy is like, okay. So he takes the dog and he kind of walks the dog around the car, and the dog goes to the back of the car, and all of a sudden, he starts licking the barbecue sauce, And the officer says, you have something in the trunk? My dog is alerting on your car.
Not knowing it was the barbecue sauce.
It was the barbecue sauce. Now, this is way past the,
real police dog, right?
Yeah, real police dog. And this has been years ago.
Right.
Statute of limitations are.
You had to do what you had to do back then.
Yeah. But that always, that's the kind of.
Needless to say, that was a big bust for y'all.
It was. And, you did what you could do, as long as it didn't push the boundaries of legality too far. But we got a bag off the street.
Right.
So I always think of that was the most funniest.
That is funny. Very creative. Very creative.
Right.
Very creative. Do you have anything that you want to say about, it doesn't have to necessarily be about the aviation unit, but anything that you want to say about your years of service with the sheriff's office?
Well, I was with the sheriff's office for 25 years.
And when did you leave?
I left in January of 2002.
Okay.
2002.
Okay.
And the last 14 years was in the aviation unit. And, through all of the good old boys and the way times were back then, I still feel blessed that I had the opportunity to fulfill my dreams since I was about 8 years old. And, I had it better than most. I mean, I was blessed to go to, pretty much all of the units I applied for. Of course, I started off in patrol and was on the SWAT team.
Right.
Ended up in was in Vice. Actually, I was asked to go to Vice, and then the Strategic Investigations Section. That was a pretty coveted unit, and that was made up of strictly of guys who were on the SWAT team. And then finally the aviation unit. Yeah. And so, I can say that the pros definitely outweighed the cons back then, because I paid for my private pilot's license, but then the city of Jacksonville paid for everything else. My instructor's license, my airline transport pilot's license, my commercial license. So that was a blessing.
And when you left the sheriff's office, all those licenses stayed with you when you left the sheriff's office. So you were able to take the knowledge and the training and the certifications and licenses that you got and continue on in life and do what you wanted to do. Before we leave, I got to talk about this picture, because I was like, who is this guy right here, man? He's got a head full of beautiful jet black hair and big old thick black mustache. And then I saw the name tag and said BB Brown, Airhawk 10. That's a very nice picture.
Well, thank you.
Now tell me when, if you can remember, a roundabout in your career was this one here taken?
That was after I first got into the aviation unit. Everybody takes a picture, and so that was taken when I first got into the aviation unit.
Nice. You were pretty young on that one. That's a very nice picture. So when you left back in 2002, it was still just you and McLean were the only two?
No, we had Steve Vaughn.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. That's right.
Steve Vaughn was still there. We had one other guy. Unfortunately, he did not make the cut. And McLean trained him, and I trained him because we wanted to make sure that he, his training was done fairly. but unfortunately, not everybody's cut out for it. And my motto was, and still is to this day, if I'm training you, and although I may want you to succeed because,
right,
that's my desire, but I'm not going to give it to you or pass you because we're the same color if you're not up to
and that's
standards.
fair. That's fair.
Because, I have to live with myself.
Yeah,
if something happens and, you hurt yourself or hurt someone, then I have to live with that.
That's right.
So, skin color doesn't get it from you. You have to be able to do the work and pass the test.
That's absolutely fair, because as a passenger and not a pilot, I want the most qualified person flying the plane that I'm on. So I understand that, and I applaud you for that. I know we probably can't go into a whole lot of great detail, but what are you doing with yourself nowadays?
I'm with a state agency. I'm the chief pilot with that state law enforcement agency. And I'm the first and only Black pilot.
Wow.
And the chief pilot.
Well, congratulations.
Well, thank you. And I've been there since,
I'm truly not pretending. I didn't know that. I mean, I knew that you were a pilot for a state agency, but I didn't know that you were, the chief pilot and the only African-American pilot. That's amazing. Congratulations to you for that.
Thank you very much.
So I have a shirt that says, I am Black history. You are Black history. So I applaud you for all of your accomplishments and everything that you've done. And I also want to say that for young men and women in law enforcement who aspire to be pilots, you are an inspiration to all of them. And I just want to commend you for that. And thank you for doing what you did, because I'm sure you were happy in narcotics and happy on the SWAT team, because those are very prestigious positions as well. But then you went on to be challenged to do something that not everybody was doing. And not only did you do it, but you excelled at it. And then you're still doing it and excelling at it. So congratulations to you on that.
Thank you. I'm very proud and blessed, but I do have to say one thing. I owe it all to Jesus.
Amen.
I just want to put that out there. I mean, I thank you for your praise, but I give him the praise, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be in the position that I am now, or, and when I was with the airline, I would be up there flying among the clouds, and I just would thank him,
Ooh, I just got chills. I can't imagine being in the clouds and talking to him.
Just thank him for letting me fly his airplane.
Yeah.
So
don't get me started.
So I have to do that.
Wow, that's a blessing. I mean, just the thought of it, the thought of being up there. And if you've ever flown, when you get up there, it's just beautiful. It's just really a white, soft, nice, peaceful place to be. And to be up there like that, I can imagine you in the front of the plane looking out the window and talking to our Heavenly Father. So that warms my heart.
Well, I do have one more story. So I was on those very lines. I was had just gotten off work. I was based in Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, and I was flying back to Jacksonville. And I just gotten off work, so I stayed on my uniform, and I was sitting in the passenger compartment. And it was kind of bad weather in Cincinnati. And so we took off from Cincinnati, and we got to about 10,000 feet. And I had this little video player. I was going to watch a movie. And all of a sudden, there was this big explosion on the left side of the airplane. Now, this orange flash, and the airplane started to slowly to bank to the right, and so everybody's looking at me because to see my reaction. So I'm saying, I'm sure it's okay. We probably got struck by lightning. And it was a full flight, so there was a third pilot sitting in the jump seat. So I know we had 3 pilots up there. So as the airplane continued to turn, when it got to a point to where somebody should be doing something now.
Right.
So I started humming Amazing Grace under my breath, you know. And
lacing your shoes up, right?
so I just kind of quietly, put my little little DVR away, and I'm starting to pray, and I'm still trying to be a source of comfort for the passengers. But I tell you, I was praying that day.
Because all eyes are on you. Because when the pilots start to panic, it's time for everybody to start to panic.
But they finally got it straightened out, and we continued to Jacksonville. And when we landed, all three of the guys up front, they bolted out to take a look at the airplane. And we had indeed gotten struck by lightning, but they were able to land safely. So.
But we never know. Well, we do know because we're believers, but we never know when that silent prayer that we say or that silent song that we sing is going to reach God's ears from our lips, and He's going to turn things around because of it. So,
right,
I'm with you on that. I'd have been praying and singing too. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure learning about you and your experience with the sheriff's office. Hopefully we can get us some free flights. I'll
see what I can do.
I'm just kidding. Again, I do want to congratulate you, though, on all of your accomplishments. And I'm going to go so far as to say the things that you will accomplish, because I understand that you're not done yet. So the things that you will accomplish, congratulations. I wish you the best. And if there's anything that the Brotherhood can do for you, as you've done for the Brotherhood, please don't hesitate to let us know. Thank you again, and we'll see you on the next one.
Well, thank you very much for having me. We appreciate it.